Welcome to this explainer. Look, right now we're seeing an absolute flood of capital pouring into AI. It's wild. We're talking numbers that actually surpass the massive railroad buildouts of the late 19th century. But with all that money concentrating in just a few hands, it really begs the question, who is actually benefiting here? Today, we're going to unpack the political economy of AI. It's not just some inevitable technological destiny. It's a series of profound political and economic choices about infrastructure and oversight that are literally going to define our future. I mean, think about it. It's completely rational to feel a bit skeptical right now. Take a tech billboard that literally says, "Stop hiring humans." When you hear something like that, the tension between everyday labor and massive capital is just staring you in the face. Right now, we're actually seeing the lowest share of total income going to labor versus capital in history. So when people push back on AI, they aren't just being stubborn, they're reacting rationally to a business model that, frankly, seems fundamentally designed to replace them.
So, if AI is this undisputed future, we gotta ask the elephant in the room. What is in it for you? We really need to shift our conversation away from the endless doom scrolling about job losses and start talking about how we can shape AI to actually benefit the public. Because if we only talk about this tech in abstract terms, that skepticism is gonna stay sky high. People will rightfully assume they're gonna be left out in the cold while a tiny handful of insiders reap all the rewards.
To make sense of this, we're going to look at 1. How AI is a political choice. 2. The local infrastructure battleground. 3. Negotiating for community benefits. 4. Imagining a public AI option. And 5. Building democratic oversight. All right, let's kick things off with part 1. AI is a political choice, moving beyond technological destiny. Here's the thing you absolutely have to keep in mind. AI's current path isn't just some baked-in feature of the science. Just look at the early internet, like ARPANET. It was architecturally distributed, built on open-source protocols. It was this generative space for creators everywhere. Modern AI, totally different story. It's incredibly concentrated, heavily reliant on massive private capital and massive GPU clusters. But remember, that concentration is a choice. It's a market structure choice, not a law of physics. The way we talk about this right now is honestly way too defensive. We're hyper-focused on harm reduction, worrying about job displacement and algorithmic bias. And yes, those are absolutely crucial. But we're completely missing an offensive agenda for harnessing goods. How do we shape the market for real public benefit? We need to stop agonizing over far future hypotheticals and start tackling the present material bottlenecks. If we don't demand that AI works for the public today, we just won't get those positive outcomes. Moving on to section 2, the local infrastructure battleground. This is where the cloud hits the ground. You might be wondering, why the sudden backlash against data centers? We talk about AI like it's this invisible, magical cloud, but the reality is it requires a massive, very real physical footprint right in our own backyards to actually function. And locals are, again, completely rationally skeptical. These enormous data centers put a massive strain on local energy grids and literally suck up local water resources. For the people living next door, it feels like this giant machine where their town's water and power go in, and all the immense tech wealth just flows out to some distant hub. They're seeing railroad levels of capital investment, but what's the actual benefit to them? Maybe a tiny bit of tax revenue, throw in the fear of automated job replacement, and it's no wonder communities feel like they are just absorbing the physical costs while the wealth completely bypasses them.
Which brings us to section 3, negotiating for community benefits and flipping the infrastructure script.
But here's the good news. Communities are starting to realize they can actually negotiate. We are moving from the old deal where companies just paid for basic electricity and threw back minimal local tax revenue to a new deal. Under this new approach, if tech giants want to build, they have to harness their private capital for long-term regional development. Instead of just approving individual buildings, local governments are pushing for comprehensive, statewide framework legislation. This way, communities can leverage the data center boom to secure desperately needed upgrades like modernizing the energy grid and upgrading water systems. It's a total game changer for local benefits. Let's zoom back out for section 4, imagining a public AI option to unlock tangible public goods. To really counter that massive private concentration we talked about earlier, we need to think a lot bigger. Have you ever considered a public AI option? We have public libraries, right? We have public health insurance. Why not a government-administered framework for AI? We're talking public GPU clusters or maybe a state-run large language model, built and staffed by top-tier talent. The goal here isn't private profit. It's explicitly serving public needs. It's just a choice to ensure this transformative tech actually works for us. So, what does a public option actually look like in the real world? Well, instead of just helping private tech companies write code faster, a publicly directed AI could tackle massive societal problems. Think about accelerating the discovery of cures for chronic diseases, or an AI that breaks down messy government data silos so health trials can actually share information. Imagine an IRS-run LLM that literally calculates and files your complex taxes for you. It could totally eliminate the time tax we all pay just trying to navigate government benefits. That is real, tangible public good. Finally, Section 5, building democratic oversight to balance accountability and expertise. Now, to pull any of this off, we have to safely govern a highly complex, lightning-fast technology. But we don't have to reinvent the wheel here. The steps are pretty straightforward. 1. Identify a complex, highly specialized sector with major societal impacts. 2. Establish a regulatory body that perfectly blends technical experts with strict democratic accountability. And 3. We just model that oversight on proven historical examples. We already have a really robust administrative ecology in this country for handling dangerous or complex things. Think about it. We don't hold a congressional vote on every single technical detail of drug safety. We rely on the FDA for testing. We have the SEC for market structure, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission for incredibly dangerous physics, and the Federal Reserve for massive economic interventions. We absolutely need a similar, expert-led oversight body for II to manage safety and balance out these massive market forces. And that brings us to the most critical point of this whole explainer. We must articulate a clear vision of how we want our future to be different. Because if we don't, all of this insane energy and investment is just going to default to whatever existing business models are already out there. And usually, that just means replacing human labor and making the already powerful corporations even more powerful. So, as we wrap up, I want to leave you with this. If AI really is going to create a future of boundless abundance, who gets to decide how it's shared? If this technology is going to completely reshape our infrastructure, our economy, and our lives, shouldn't we, the public, be the ones holding the reins? Remember, AI is not destiny. It is a political choice, and it's a choice we have to actively make together.